So I have a little bit of a deeper chat about Hatha yoga because this one can be quite confusing sometimes. Hatha yoga was the original form of yoga which first came around, and therefore every other style of yoga has been adapted from Hatha yoga. This often quite means that if you practice a yoga class, people will just call it Hatha yoga. So Hatha yoga can come across like one form of yoga in one class that one person teaches that could be really intense and really hard and crazy, and then the next person could teach it in quite a gentle, relaxing, chilled out way. So if you have done like a yoga class and then you come to someone else's hatha yoga class and you're like, whoa, this is two different worlds, then that's why. So to give you a bit more of an understanding of what traditional hatha yoga kind of should be like, it usually always starts off with a bit of a warm up, and then you do your sun salutations or Surya Namaskar. This is like the classic approach to yoga, is that you do this uh, same sequence of postures in the flow with the breath usually, and you will repeat that 3 to 5 times at least. And the sun salutations you will see appear in other forms of yoga like Ashtanga and Vinyasa, but they'll be slightly different in Hatha. Hatha has its own unique style, and like I said earlier on, these other styles of yoga were derived from Hatha, so they kind of took some things and chopped and changed it around to make it a little bit more cool. So you'll find that's what happens when you go to Hatha yoga class. Traditionally, it's quite strict. It's quite focused on how things used to be, how it should be. There's a lot of time of focusing on the correct alignment and doing these sun salutations. Then once you've done the sun salutations, what that does is that kind of warms up and mobilizes your whole body. So kind of every muscle group is activated and your spine is kind of, completely warmed up, legs are strong, and heart rate is up, body is warm. From there, you'll do a series of standing poses. It's not usually much more than like 5 or 6 poses at the most, depending on how long the class is. Could be as little as 3. Then once you've done your 3 standing poses, or however many you do, you'll then do a good few seated lying down poses at the end. And the main focus on that class is to hold the pose in a steady way for a good amount of time. Okay, so this is what Hatha Yoga is trying to do, is it is trying to get you to approach your yoga practice in a very balanced way. Sometimes it doesn't seem like that because we'll be holding a pose, maybe where you're standing or balancing, and it's really, really hard because you're trying to work hard to stay in that pose. But they want to keep you at that place where you're not pushing yourself so hard that you're just making things worse, where you can just find the most appropriate level for you and your body. And once you find that appropriate level, you work there and you learn how to stay calm, you learn how to stay focused, you learn how to stay in tune and aware of your body and your breath. And this can be really, really, really challenging, but it's a great practice if you really want to get a good understanding of yoga. Because you hold these poses for a long amount of time and because they are more alignment based, you really get a chance to understand how these poses should feel for you and how they should look to a certain extent. I mean, every single person is completely different, so some poses will just look different based on your body type and your body shape. But the most important thing is you'll begin to make that connection of knowing how your mind should feel, how your breath should be, and how the poses should feel for you. Once you get to that place where you establish a good connection with those key points in your Hatha yoga practice, then you can go to most other yoga practices and you'll know how to approach them and you'll know how to keep yourself balanced without going too hard. So that's why I really recommend Hatha yoga to people who want to just get like a good solid understanding of a yoga practice. Hatha yoga is great because if you like a more active, stronger form of yoga, but you do not like this whole kind of like flow from this pose to that pose to this pose to the next pose, and you just want to keep things simple, then Hatha yoga ticks that box. So if you're someone who is like, oh, I actually think I prefer something that's really fast flowing and a bit more energetic, then you can have a look at Ashtanga and Vinyasa. Those are great, but I would always recommend to spend a bit of time practicing some Hatha yoga, because when you really learn how to approach yoga with this Hatha yoga mindset, it sets you up in good stead for the rest of your practice. So this is what I found really beneficial for me. I also found that when practicing Hatha yoga, it really works on my mind. So a lot of the times, if I think about when I've been practicing Hatha yoga, we start to hold the poses and then mind wants to get distracted, it gets bored, the body starts getting a bit fed up of just being still in this pose and doing the same thing, which is totally normal. This is how our brains are wired and it's how they develop. But when you learn to continue to stay present, to stay focused on your body and not let that little voice in your mind take over the practice and ruin your practice, then we really start to learn that discipline of how to sort of take a bit more control of our mind, or just how to not let our mind take control of us. And that is one of the biggest things that I think I have taken away from my Hatha yoga practice. So really, really recommend Hatha yoga. It's a great one if you're looking at strengthening the joints as well. It can be really good for building that stability, and as well as building that strength and stability and balance within the body. You do also work very deep into your flexibility. It's more worked in an active way where you're building strength with your flexibility, which is really good to avoid injuries. Overall, it's a really great practice that I really highly recommend for people to get into if they're interested in yoga.